Hi, I'm Rosanna.
And I'm John. Today we are playing the role of the explainers. We know just about everything about reading development, and we can't wait to explain what is known from the best available evidence about reading comprehension.
And I'm Jennifer. Today, I will play the role of the skeptic. I don't believe anything I hear or see. I'll be critical of what the explainers say and ask lots of questions to make sure they only provide sound information. And importantly, I'll push for concrete connections to teaching so we can keep this all as practical as possible.
And remember, we are just actors playing these roles. We are not really obnoxious know-it-alls.
I'm not really that harsh of a critic, but we are playing these exaggerated roles to make it extra clear that we want our audience to critically evaluate what scientific research offers for classroom practices.
Today, we'll start things off by summarizing some of the most compelling findings from scientific research on reading comprehension. In a separate video, we will do the same thing for the research on word reading. But here we will try to sum up what is known about teaching elementary children to comprehend a written text in the form of 6 big ideas that, in our view, are backed by evidence.
Skeptic? Do you think we can summarize the huge evidence base in less than 5 minutes?
Nope, but I bet you'll try.
Well, here goes. First, children benefit from explicit instruction in a few evidence-based comprehension strategies, or ways of thinking and talking about comprehension processes that kids can practice to help them get better at understanding a text.
More strategies? What is the difference between these strategies and the ones I already use?
This is an area where you have to be really careful with the science, because there's really only a handful of strategies that have a strong evidence base. Some of these probably already sound familiar, but the strategies that are most supported by evidence are setting a purpose for reading, predicting before and throughout reading, monitoring and repairing comprehension breakdowns, self-questioning, self-explanation or thinking aloud, summarizing, and visualizing.
So, bottom line, what does this mean for teaching?
Teachers should have an organized approach to explicitly modeling these strategies so students can see them in action, followed by guided practice and chances to use them with peers and on their own. This helps kids learn how and when to use these strategies independently to take control of their own reading.
I'll just add that teachers should do this in moderation. Kids don't need to spend all year, every year, doing nothing but talking about strategies.
That's fair.
Second big idea, awareness of text structure can help build children's comprehension. In addition to strategy instruction, teachers can help kids notice the different ways that authors organize expository text, including cause and effect, compare and contrast, description, and sequence of events.
Surely, you don't just mean helping kids be able to name the structure of a text.
Of course not. We aren't just talking about correctly identifying structure like you might see in a test question. Instead, teachers should model how to use your awareness of structure to help understand and summarize the big ideas in a text.
Okay, what's next?
Big idea number 3 is explicit vocabulary instruction that expands kids' knowledge of words. Most comprehension difficulties that aren't caused by problems in decoding and phonology can be traced to a need for broader and deeper vocabulary. Every school should adopt a clear approach to building students' knowledge of words, selectively focusing on a few words per week that kids will encounter in multiple places in the curriculum.
But you can't possibly teach all the thousands of words that children need to learn across the elementary grades. A few words a week is barely a drop in the bucket.
True, you can't teach all the words kids need to learn, but you can teach some of them, and you definitely should. Learning a few words deeply is really important.
The fourth big idea is closely related to vocabulary. In fact, some people might consider them to be mostly the same thing. Comprehension depends on knowledge. This includes word knowledge, but also knowledge about the world and the topics they are reading about.
Okay, but that's not reading instruction. That's more like content area teaching that you might do in science or social studies.
Exactly. We don't always think of content area instruction as reading instruction, but it is. Instruction that exposes children to new content is foundational. Comprehending is always built on what the reader already knows.
Speaking of knowledge, that brings me to our fifth big idea. There's a special kind of knowledge that is important for reading. Written texts often use a type of language called academic language. Children benefit from exposure to and instruction in this type of language.
Sounds like another buzzword. Be more specific. What exactly is academic language?
I'm talking about complex words and grammatical structures that are not as common in spoken language but appear frequently in written language, especially in books, websites, textbooks, etc. that kids read for school purposes.
Are you almost done?
We have one last big idea. Teachers should use discussion and questioning techniques, emphasizing inferential thinking. An inference is when you understand something that wasn't directly stated by linking together ideas in the text with each other and with prior knowledge. It requires background knowledge, but it also requires lots of practice.
That sounds intense. Isn't that something kids learn to do later as a higher level skill?
Not really. Nearly every sentence you read requires some level of inference to piece together its meaning. There really is no comprehension without inference. It is a foundational type of reasoning used constantly while reading. Kids start learning to make inferences really early in their oral language development.
So, what should teachers do?
Some kids learn to do this quite intuitively, but many will need explicit practice, especially as they begin to encounter more complex texts. So to give lots of practice with inference making, when reading to and with children, teachers pose questions and give discussion prompts that invite their students to infer unstated information and to explain their thinking.
So let's recap. What does science say about teaching reading comprehension to young children? In 6 words only.
Strategies, structure, vocabulary, knowledge, academic language,
That's 2 words, but I'll let it slide.
and inferences.
So, how'd we do? Did we finish in time?
Just barely, but I think you could have made it shorter.